And so obviously potty training is an important part of a child's development. And, you know, parents want potty training just as much as teachers and vice versa. You know, I think there's this misconception out there that either parents really want it and teachers don't, or teachers really want it and parents don't. And I think everyone's on the same page. They want to do it. They're just not really sure how to do it, what are the signs, when kids are ready. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And if you have questions, just stop me. I love questions. So, children with disabilities can potty train at the same age as typical kids. I think there's this big misconception out there that kids have to be a lot older, or that we have to wait, or that kids can never be potty trained. And that's simply just not true. We also know that children with disabilities have a particular learning style, so they learn differently than other children. So we need to take that into account when we're potty training our kids. And when we think about kids who maybe have communication delays, or maybe they have a hard time processing their sensory needs, so they may not know when their bladder is full, we as parents and providers, we start watching for those signs and symptoms. And, you know, are they grabbing themselves? Or are they doing the potty dance? Or are they going over in the corner? And, you know, when the kid's squatting over in the corner, they're letting you know that they need to go to the bathroom, but maybe they're just not able to yet let you know, or they're not initiating those toileting. The toileting. So we're going to talk about the strategies that we can do to make our kids successful. So we typically say we want kids to be at least 18 months old. Typical kids aren't getting potty trained much sooner than that, so we just say let's look at 18 months. And the reason for that is because we need to make sure we have strong enough muscles to be able to control our bowel movements and our bladder. We are looking for, but not a requirement, is that they don't have bowel movements through the night. If they do, that's okay. I've potty trained kids who do typically have bowel movements through the night. It's harder to get kids bowel trained that way if they're consistently having bowel movements at night, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done. Appears to know he's about to urinate. Well, if I waited for my kiddos at school to be looking down or grabbing themselves or whatever, sometimes my kids would never get potty trained. So if we're not seeing that they know when they're about to urinate, they're not doing the potty dance, sometimes we just say, we're going to go for it. They're 3 years old, let's just try and see what happens. So if you're not seeing all of this, I would say the one thing that you should take into consideration is that 18-month-old mark, just because of the muscle control. But everything else we can work around. And another thing that's important is dry diapers for at least an hour and a half, and that kind of goes with those muscle control, being able to make sure that they have the muscle control to not always be continually emptying their bladder. Newborns and young babies, they just seem to constantly have wet diapers, so we want to make sure that we at least have some time frame when we're staying dry. And the real question is, are you guys ready? Because what I'm going to talk to you about is a very intensive, time-consuming way to potty train kids. But I was saying earlier, the fastest I've had this work is 2 days. The longest it's taken is 7 days. So I call this potty boot camp because it is you live and breathe and eat and sleep potty training. But if you do it intensely for a short amount of time, we see much more success. And I always say I'd rather do something really intense for a short amount of time than stress out for a long period of time. But I will also say, I've had a lot of parents email me since last year who went through the potty training. Some have had great success stories. It worked on the first time, and this is so great. I wish I would have done this before. And I've had other parents say, I got to the second day, and I was just mentally frazzled, so I stopped, and I'm going to come back to it. Where do you think the hiccups were? So I'll give you my email address at the end of this, and you're more than welcome to shoot me an email, or you can ask Megan. She'll give you my email if you, for some reason, lose it. I'm always more than willing to help out any way I can. So I kind of joked about it, that, you know, the squatting, they're over in the corner. Are you seeing them take off their diaper or their pull-up when it's wet? Do they hide in order to have bowel movements? I see somebody shaking their head, grunting or straining. And then I love the potty dance. Sometimes my 16-year-old stepson does the potty dance when we're going places. So, when we think about potty training, we've got to think about it in some humor and some laughter, because otherwise you'll just kind of drive yourself insane in terms of the intensity of the process. So I always say, as long as you have more successes in this process than accidents, then you're on the right track. So if we're still, because all kids are having accidents, It doesn't. I've never met a person who's potty trained their child, and from the first time they sat them onto the toilet, they never had an accident after that. So I don't want you guys coming to this and saying, "We're never going to have an accident." There will be accidents. So, does the child attend for a short period of time? So, can you get them to attend or engage in an activity? Because we're going to be sitting on the potty for a long time. So we want to make sure that they can attend. We want to make sure that there's activities that they enjoy. So books, songs, movies, iPads, snacks. So you're going to start collecting materials and getting all of the things that they love. And I always tell my families that if you're going to start potty training, I want you a week before to withhold their favorite drink, and a week before they don't get access to any of their favorite things, whether it's the books or the movies or the snacks, because you want them to really want those things and those to be really powerful reinforcers. So there's two approaches. We have trick training, which is where you learn muscle control by going to the bathroom frequently. So every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes. But the problem with that is then they have to rely on you, always taking them. Then it's a lot more casual, it's less stringent, there's more flexibility in it. But then we see sometimes that it takes longer, and there's higher rates of accidents and setbacks. And our goal by the end of this is that your child is either taking himself to the bathroom and doing everything on his own, or he's coming to you and indicating that he needs to go. Whether he's telling you, he's doing a sign, he's pointing, using a picture, whatever their mode of communication is. So we're really wanting our kids to initiate going to the bathroom. So trick training gets tricky because kids rely on you or their caretaker or their teacher to take them. Now we're going to talk about rapid toilet training, and this is a book that was written in the 1970s by Azarin and Fox. I will tell you, it's a good book in terms of the content and how to potty train. It is a horrible book in terms of people first language, being appropriate in the language we use for people with disabilities. So just if you get the book, know that this was written in the 70s and he uses words that, you know, like ban the R word. I mean, he just uses inappropriate language in terms of people with disabilities. So I always tell people, if you're going to get the book, be prepared for that, because he's not the most politically correct. But it includes intensive day-long training sessions. When I mean day-long, I mean day-long. Like, you wake up and you're in the bathroom, and then you break for nap time, and then you come back and you're in the bathroom until you go to bed. So it really is all day long. The pros are quicker results. Like I said, we are able to potty train kids really quickly, and there's less chances of accidents and setbacks, and this will teach kids to initiate potty training, so to take themselves to the toilet. But it's more labor intensive, and for the people who are doing this, it can be pretty stressful. And so we always say, if you're going to do it, make sure you have another person who can kind of be there to be your backup, so you can say, I need to take a break for 10 minutes, or I need to go to the bathroom, so that you can leave and go to the bathroom. So most successful approaches for children with disabilities, what we've done is we've kind of combined approaches that are practical and comprehensive, but we want to look at things that are appropriate for kids who have some developmental delays, that maybe have a hard time communicating their wants and needs, or maybe don't learn skills at the same pace as other kids do. So some preparation that you need to do. You're going to gather materials. And those materials are going to be the reinforcers that they like, the food, the snacks, the games, all of the toys that they love. And then I say for 2 days before, take some data. So we do dry pant checks. So like every 30 minutes, check the diaper to see if they're wet or dry, so you know, are we at that hour and a half, even hour mark. And then gather your team, because you're going to need a team for this. This is definitely a team approach, and maybe if you have your special education teacher or your child's assistant, they may be willing to do this. We always say by the 3rd day, typically they're able to kind of reintegrate back into home life or school life. And so maybe if you're going to do this, start on a weekend, like on a Saturday and a Sunday, so that on Monday they might be able to be at school and be successful. And then phase 1, we're going to start phase 1. So materials, cotton underwear, no pull-ups. When we're going to potty train, we're going to potty train. I think pull-ups, while are a nice invention, are the worst invention when you try and potty train kids, because it's a glorified diaper. It just gets taken off differently. So when we potty train, the only time a diaper is going to go on our kid again is when we're in bed. So that means if you've got to drive someplace, put a towel, pat it up. If you're transporting from one house to another house, we've got to make sure that our kids are in underwear. Your reinforcing items, so your activities, toys, food, a timer and a clock, so whether it's your phone or an iPad or if you have a regular timer, so a kitchen timer, and a small child's chair. And I always say you want it to where they can get their feet on the floor. You don't want their feet dangling because if their feet are dangling, they may not have the fullness of the bladder. They may not feel that their bladder is full. And then comfortable seating for you and be in comfortable clothes because you'll be either sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair. And so you want to make sure you're as comfortable as possible. And then towels and wipes for cleanup because, like I said, there's going to be accidents. And so we just want to make sure that we have all the materials so you're not having to run out of the bathroom to go grab stuff. So baseline data, we're going to count the number of wet diapers and the time of day. 3 days in a row, I said at least 2. So dry pant checks or diaper checks every 30 minutes. Tally the time and when you change them beside the changing table or a designated spot, so that helps you really remember. Tape it to the refrigerator depending on where you change your kids. I know my sister got a changing table thinking, I'm going to always use it. And she's like, whatever, sofa, the floor, wherever is easiest to change kids. So depending on where you change your child, it might be a different location. And then, again, it says ensure that they're dry through the night, but that's not a deal breaker for me because kids have accidents up until the age of 8 or 9. And so to expect our kids to be dry through the night, I just don't think is a fair expectation. So just as I feel like as long as it's not a huge blowout where we're going wet through the clothes and through the sheets and all of that. So our phase 1 objective is that we just want to teach them that they go to the bathroom and the toilet. That's all we're looking for them to do in the phase 1. So he's going to sit on the toilet with no clothing. And we don't want to use a small potty because then you have to transition teaching them from small potty to big potty. So get an insert. They have inserts now. I would not recommend the kind with the handles on the side because if you have a boy and you're trying to potty train, you're going to have to scoot him all the way back so he rolls forward so that it doesn't go everywhere. And if it has handles, you won't be able to do that. I also encourage you to get a stool for them to rest their feet on because their legs get tired, their booty gets sore. And so we want to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible. You are going to give them unlimited liquid of choice. So if like their favorite thing is Sprite, do half water, half Sprite to get them to drink as much liquid as possible. I mean, we want to push and push and push fluids. And it might mean here's a Cheerio and then you get a drink, or here's a Cheeto and then you get a drink. Something to keep their palate needing a lot of fluids. The one thing I will caution you on is milk. I had another mom potty train and use milk because that's all he would drink. It constipates you. So don't use milk. You can use it some, but don't have that be the only drink. And we want to reinforce kids for sitting because they're going to be sitting for a long time. So they get access to some of their favorite things, like the iPad or a movie. Not their most favorite thing, but something that they really enjoy. So books, video games, and we want to make sure we're telling them that they're sitting so that they understand why they're getting reinforced. So we are literally going to sit until they go. And I have given kids 5 sippy cups, and they haven't gone, and it's been an hour, and the belly is like sticking out, and you're thinking, how can this be as an adult? I couldn't do that. So he doesn't get up until he goes. Now here's the tricky thing. The first time they go, you want to be like, yeah, and like you start cheering and screaming. You got to wait till they finish. Because what I've learned is you cheer, and then they get startled, and then they squeeze, and then it stops. Because we want them to learn to completely empty their bladder. So we want to provide lots of reinforcement. Then they get access to their most favorite thing. So if Yo Gabba Gabba is their most favorite thing, they don't get Yo Gabba Gabba for just sitting on the toilet. They get Yo Gabba Gabba for going on the toilet. They get a video game for sitting on the toilet, but they get Yo Gabba Gabba for going. And he hasn't had access to Yo Gabba Gabba for a week because we want this to be powerful. So then they've gone, we're so excited, and they get off the toilet for 10 minutes. And their little bum's going to be red, and they're going to be, you know, walking like a cowboy because they'll be sitting there. So they get their favorite activity for the entire time that they're off, that 10 minutes. And then you're going to repeat the procedure again. And so I always say keep data, put the time on, write it on a piece of paper, and the time they get off, write down the time that they go. I also encourage families to take data on how many cups of juice or water or whatever they're going through, because what happens is after about the 5th cup, they literally start going every 10, 11, 7 minutes. I mean, it's just, when it starts going, it just starts going. But we're still pushing fluids this entire day. So we repeat the procedure again. So some rules: he can't get off the toilet for any other reason than going to the bathroom. So when it's time for lunch, he gets to eat his lunch in that 10-minute time frame when he went. And if you're okay with it, he can eat while he's on the toilet. And when we're potty training our kids at school, we talk to families about, we make sure we keep the bathroom really sanitary, and we're washing everything, wiping it all down so that they're not missing out on opportunities to eat and things like that. But typically our kids will eat their lunch when they get off of the toilet. Differential reinforcement, so think of that in terms of your very best response, get your most powerful reinforcer. You're just sitting there and you get an okay reinforcer. So good sitting, he gets good reinforcers. Going to the bathroom, we're like handing him the moon. So you've gone to the bathroom, I'll give you whatever you want. It can take from 30 minutes to 2 hours for them to understand to void in the toilet. And what we're looking for is, and they may go 3 or 4 or 5 times, what we want is to see them look down either the instant they start going to the bathroom or right before they start going to the bathroom. So they're acknowledging that they understand the sensation of going to the bathroom. So that's when phase 1 is completed, when he reliably anticipates his voiding by looking down and smiling or becoming excited when he's gone to the bathroom. And I have seen phase 1 last 2 days and then the rest is really easy. I've seen phase 1 last 3 times because I feel like reliably is 3 times in a row they look down to anticipate. So if some of you guys have tried potty training and you just can't hit it at the right time, so maybe they've gone once or twice for you so they understand to go in the bathroom but they aren't consistent with it, you may get through this phase 1 a lot faster. And families that were emailing me last year, they had a lot of their kids who would go every now and again on the toilet, but they just weren't consistent. And so this phase went really, really quickly. But for kids who've never sat on the toilet, who've never gone, this can take a little bit longer. The other thing I would say too is if you're just starting to potty train, and you should expose them to the toilet in that when you change their diaper before they get into the bath, go ahead and have them sit on the toilet and just get comfortable with sitting on the toilet. Because for some kids that's a pretty scary thing, like they think they're going to fall down into it. So before we potty train our kids at EF, we say we need them to be able to sit on the toilet for at least 20 to 30 seconds. If he has an accident during the 10 minutes where he's off the potty, sit him back on the toilet. And when he goes again, he gets to take off the gets taken off the toilet and make the interval of play time 9 minutes. Or if you're seeing he's going every 7 minutes, not 10 minutes, then slice back to that time. So that's where taking that time data is really important, or setting a timer or a stopwatch. Because if they're having accidents every 7 minutes and you're keeping them off for 10, you'll never catch them on the toilet. So if you're getting more accidents in a shorter amount of time, you need to make the time off the toilet shorter. And if it's been 5 sippy cups and then they finally go, you're going to have a lot shorter window of time when they're going to the bathroom at first. And so there'll be a little bit more accidents sometimes. So what if they won't comply? Because who wants to sit on the toilet all day? I don't. So, just remain calm and neutral. Don't discuss the issue or try and explain it. That's when we're just going to start, well, what do you want? Oh, you want a movie? Let's watch a movie. Oh, you're hungry? Let's have something to eat. So we're going to just reinforce them for just simply being on the toilet. And if it's this huge tantrum, meltdown fit, then maybe we need to step back and say, have we gotten them accustomed to sitting on the toilet? Do we need to just get used to sitting on the toilet? So, but what we typically see with our kids is about 6 or 7 minutes into the tantrum, when they realize this is what we're going to do, you get access to all the things you like, but you still have to be there, it typically subsides. And again, you give them all the things they like for sitting on the potty. So they could be screaming in your face, but if their rear is on the seat of that toilet, give them access to what they want. So phase 2, this is where we start to teach that independence and that initiation. So we want him to not rely on us to go to the bathroom. And this is how we teach it. We want to teach them to stand up and take themselves to the toilet. Because even if you have a kid who maybe can't verbally communicate that they need to go, if you look at 3- and 4-year-olds, they're not always going over to their mom saying, I need to go to the bathroom. I mean, parents will be like, I just went to go see what he was doing, and I heard the toilet flush, and he's coming out of the bathroom. So kids do independently go themselves, and so that's what we're shooting for. So the procedure for that would be that you're going to place that child's chair right next to the toilet. Okay, so we're still in the bathroom, but so the toilet's here and the chair's here, and we still don't have clothes on. And I feel like you can have a t-shirt on because it gets cold in the bathroom, so you're good with t-shirt, socks, because feet get cold too. But you set him next to the toilet without clothes and wait patiently. You're still going to be pumping him full of fluids because we want their bladder to be full. And the goal is that when he feels the need to go to the bathroom, that he'll get up from the chair and go and sit on the toilet to go to the bathroom. So that's what we're looking for, just that. Don't have to walk but 1 or 2 steps and they're going to sit down on the toilet. And then after he goes to the bathroom, you're going to reinforce him, and you're going to put him back in the chair, and he's going to get access to his favorite item. And this phase is where we see the most accidents, is that initial, I get myself up and I take myself to the bathroom phase. And then after 10 minutes, you're going to remove reinforcement and wait for initiation again. And the reason why we want to remove the reinforcement is because all kids, when they get engaged in an activity, they just stop paying attention to how their body feels, and so they won't be listening to the cues that their bladder's telling them. So that's why we want to, after 10 minutes, to just say, all right, let's pull this back and have you start the process over again. This is the hardest part because they're going to be doing the dance and wiggling around, and we don't want to prompt them. We don't want to be like, stand up. We don't want to nudge them. We don't want to get them to go to the toilet. We do not want to help them at all. This is where we want them to learn to stand themselves up and take themselves over to the toilet. This is the other hard part. If your child has an accident, of course you want to be like, stop, and then get him on the toilet and let him finish. No, we're going to allow him to finish his accident. And then have him help clean his body in the bathroom. I mean, we're not saying he needs to clean it perfectly, but just take a towel, pat, so that he understands that when we have an accident, we need to clean up. And the reason why we do this is, if we were to put a kid in a chair, and he starts to have an accident, and then we stop him and we put him on the toilet, and he sits down and he goes to the bathroom, we would reinforce him because he's gone to the bathroom in the toilet. But what we've inadvertently reinforced is, go to the bathroom just a little bit, and then I'm going to take you, and then you're going to go, and then I'm going to reinforce you. So what you're doing is you're teaching the child, you're reinforcing the child for having an accident and then getting on the toilet. So this is a really hard thing, to allow a kid to have an accident, to stop them and then to put them on the toilet. We don't want to do that. Just let him finish out the accident. Now if the kid starts to go, and then stands himself up and takes them to the toilet, that's okay, because they're still learning their body cues, but we don't want to put them on the toilet.
And this all happens in one weekend?
Phase 2 usually is, I've seen the 2nd or 3rd day. I mean, when I say you're living in the bathroom, you're living in the bathroom. That's why I say make sure you're ready. And I had a mom email me and she was like, you weren't lying. When you said you're in the bathroom, you're like, really in the bathroom? So if you are a working parent, which a lot of you probably are, we say look for like a long weekend, so like Memorial Weekend or 4th of July. I know everybody on the 4th of July wants to be living in the bathroom, but or, you know, just try and at least give yourself 2 days to get through a phase, and then maybe you say, okay, now I've got to go to work, so we're going to hold off, and then the next weekend you're going to start back at the last phase you were at, but they should get through that faster. So it may be that it's a weekend that you potty train, and then a week of not, and then a weekend that you are. I've had families email me and say that's how they had to do it because they just didn't have, you know, 5 days to potty train their kids.
So when, say you have to stop on a weekend at a phase, like, do you let your child care provider know? I mean, is this something you need to plan ahead to work with them on? Yeah,
so I would say that we want to make sure that they are in the loop, especially when we get to, our clothes are back on and we're in close proximity to the bathroom, but we're allowed to be out in the house and we're free because we're in our underwear. And so, you know, the teachers are going to want to know, child care providers, we need to let them know too. And some child care places will say, no, if he's not in a diaper, then and if he's not completely potty trained, then we're not going to do that here because of accidents and stuff. So there are going to be parameters around that, and so that's when you just have to look at the situation and say, okay, we're going to do the best we can with the time we have, and we're going to get as far as we can get, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back to it. And I've had families have success with that too. So we're going to, if he has an accident, then we're going to start the time over and place him back in the chair. But you're going to move the chair closer, because as he has more successes, so he gets up and he takes himself, then you're going to pull the chair back just a little bit. And then he's going to stand up and he's going to take himself, and you're going to pull the chair back just a little bit. And so if he has an accident, then we want to move the chair closer to the toilet. So here's some pitfalls. If your child has 3 accidents in the chair in a row, he's not understanding that his bladder is full, and so he hasn't mastered that sitting phase, so then you would go back to the sitting on the toilet phase. And I've seen that happen for kids, but typically what happens is they have 1 or 2 more successes, they understand it, and then they go through phase 2 a little bit more quickly. So we say at least 5 more times of eliminating in the toilet, and then move back on. If you had to say, I can only do this 1 day or 2 days, then I would say after you've gotten through phase 1, where they're looking down in the toilet and going, then I would say call it good and stop there. Like, don't push on if you have to wait a few days. So then, if that's the case and you're going to start back up on the next weekend, then on Friday night, I would do a little bit of the just sitting on the toilet to kind of refresh their memory of what's supposed to happen. And then Saturday morning, start with the phase 2. So if you have to do it over the weekends. A small amount of kids will pay attention to the wrong cues and become dependent on significant cues. So like if they're kind of doing the potty dance and you're looking over at the toilet, they may learn to watch and wait for you to look at the toilet. So you just want to make sure you're remaining really neutral and not giving them any cues in terms of looking over or pointing or tapping the toilet or nudging the chair or you standing up and walking towards the toilet. Because sometimes it's hard for kids to get on the toilet, which is why it's really important to have that step stool to help them get on. And you can help them get on. And when they get clothes back on, you can help them take off their clothes, because that's a hard skill. Sometimes that button and unbutton and push down and all of that. So we're just looking for them to get up and take them over. And then using a most to least prompting strategy means that, you know, if we have to help them because they can't get up on the toilet, as soon as we see that they're proficient, we want to kind of back off, because we don't want them to rely on mom lifting him up and putting him on the toilet. We want them to learn to step up on the step stool. And I have seen, someone sent me something on Amazon where it had steps and it had handles on the sides so that they could hold on to it while they were getting up on the toilet. But it was far enough away to where their legs weren't hanging over the handlebars. So phase 3 is where we want him to be able to kind of be in the house, be in school, be at grandma's or the daycare, and still maintain his ability to go to the bathroom and the toilet. So in order to do that, we do those dry pant checks. So you were checking the diapers originally every 30 minutes, so you're going to do dry pant checks and reinforce them. Oh my gosh, I like how your pants are dry. Here's some fruit snacks. Or it's so great that you're dry right now. Here's a little bit of a movie. So telling them that they have their pants dry. And then as they are successful, you're going to lengthen how long you go in terms of their dry pant checks. And I am as long as if you're going to the bathroom 5 times a day and you have 3 accidents, that's okay. If you're going to the bathroom 5 times a day and you have 4 accidents, that's okay. I think when it makes that shift of 6 accidents, 5 successes, that's when we want to say, okay, maybe they haven't grasped the concept, they haven't learned the skill completely. And so if they have accidents, slicing back or going back to phase 2 by moving the child closer to the toilet and remove 1 item of clothing. So after they're not directly next to the toilet, so maybe they're a few feet away, you're going to add the underwear. And then as you move them further and further from the toilet, you're going to add pants, socks, shirt, whatever they still have left to be added. And we want to make sure they have a variety of places to use the bathroom. We've seen some of our kids that will only go in the toilet at school and in mom's bathroom, not their bathroom. So mom's bathroom is a lot bigger. It's more convenient, there's more space, so they potty trained in the master bathroom, and now they want potty train in the other bathroom. Or we started with a small toilet, and now we're going to a big toilet. So we just want to make sure that we provide lots of opportunities. So if they need a toilet seat, I had a mom carry a toilet seat in her bag. It was an excuse to get a big purse, so she could carry an insert when she went to Target. So we still want our kids to learn to ask to go to the bathroom in Target or Walmart or at the park or wherever they are.
Do you have a specific recommendation on whether you use the small ones that are on the floor or the inserts that go in the toilet?
I say inserts because otherwise they learn to go in the little potty and then they have to learn to get in the big potty. So if you're teaching them how to go to the bathroom, teach it all. Teach them how to get up on a step stool and how to sit. And with boys, we teach them to sit going to the bathroom first. And once they've mastered that, then we teach standing up to go to the bathroom.
I had a question, I should ask this earlier. For little boys, is it easier to have them face the back of the toilet than it is the front? Or how do you go about that? Because I had a friend of mine telling me, she said, you know, she had to teach her son to push down so we don't pee up and stuff like that. Sorry,
so what we do is we put it's easier for boys actually in that we scoot them all the way back so that their rear is sitting on the back lip of the seat. And then their legs, I'm getting kind of graphic here, but their legs are spread open to the side so that when they go, they're going to naturally roll forward. If they don't roll forward, then we just take their hand and teach them how to push it down when they're going.
We just still have them sit forward. We don't have them sit backwards.
No. Okay. That's a good question. So, some modifications. So once a child eliminates in the toilet and will initiate in certain settings, but not all. So maybe they'll do it at home, but not at school. You need to teach self-management system. So maybe it's that they will do the sign for toilet for you, or they'll point to the toilet for you, but they're not doing that for the teacher or the child care provider. So we need to make sure that we're reinforcing just the requesting to the daycare provider or the teacher. And you know, as a teacher in the public schools, I was notorious of, this is when I do my diapers and my bathroom at this time. And my student, the first kid I ever got to go potty, I noticed he always went about 8 minutes after snack time. So I never took him before snack time. I took all my other kids, but I would take him right after snack, and we would just sit there. And he was my first kid to be successful with even going to the bathroom. But he didn't have any words, and he couldn't indicate that he had to go. I just had to rely on the timing of it all. So he was a kid who was trip trained. And that worked for me at school, but it was harder for the family to, because I only had him for 2.5 hours, so to take a kid every 30, 45 minutes is not as big of an issue as when you have him for a whole weekend, and it's like, again, I got to take you again. And so we need to make sure we're teaching our kids how to let people know and manage. So a picture, if you have your kids are on any type of picture schedules or anything like that, a picture of the potty and a schedule, or if they're using a PECS book because maybe they're not verbally communicating yet, or they have an output device or an iPad app, having that picture on the iPad app or in their PECS book so that they can ask. teaching them the sign. Another thing that we did too was I had little potty icons in every center so that if he didn't know where his book was or he forgot, then he could just see that icon and tear it off and just go running into the bathroom. So it was almost a way to kind of remind him that you need to feel your bladder and know if you need to go. Provide supports when they have to go to in like a place like Target. I mean, the population I work with, they have a lot of noise sensitivity, so bathrooms in Walmart and Target can be a nightmare, like 100 million toilets flushing. So just kind of taking that into consideration. I mean, when a kid says he has to go, you just kind of sometimes have to run in and go. So it's important that you practice in strange places so that they can become successful. And so then there's, like I was saying, that potty cushion that mom carries, or an adaptive potty chair. I just thought it was funny because the mom's like, it was a good excuse to get a new big purse to be able to stick my toilet in. So some other barriers, they may learn to go to the bathroom when they hear people say, like, do you need to go potty? You're dancing around. You haven't gone to the bathroom in a long time, so they learn to wait for you to take them. The color of the chair, I had one student who was like, we taught him how, in a red cube chair and to sit next to the toilet, and then when he went home, they had a green chair, and they had to start all over again because he didn't understand the difference between the red chair and the green chair. Whether or not the door was open, what clothes they have on. Typically children with Down syndrome don't have generalization issues like kiddos with autism do, but I mean, sometimes it's the person. So if mom potty trained phase 1 and then dad comes in, it kind of throws them for a loop for a second. So just be mindful of those things. The loss of independent initiation after being taken by an adult. I had a kid potty trained in 3 days, and then the mom got really nervous because he hadn't gone in a while, and she took him twice. And then we had to go all the way back and start again. So, because she was so fearful of an accident. And I'm telling you, there's going to be accidents. So it's okay for accidents. And so they need to learn, like if the door is closed, what do I do? We need to teach them that we go and open the door, or we knock on the door. And if they, what do they do if they can't find the bathroom, or the buttons on the pants are hard? When we potty train our kids, we also say put them in the biggest sweatpants you have, so that when they are pushing them down and pulling them up, it's really easy to do. Nighttime training. Most of our kids we see that have it during the day typically will have it at night. But what we see is the first thing in the morning, they go to the bathroom, and for the boys, when they sit, it just goes everywhere because they've held it for so long. So just make sure that you're prepared to help them point down when they go. And just keep that nightly routine of, you know, before we take a bath or after we take a bath, we're going to go to the bathroom, and then we put our pull-up on, and then we go to bed. So the pull-up or the diaper doesn't go on until it's time for bed. So even when kids are toilet trained, I say err on the side of caution at nighttime and nap time, and until you're pretty confident that they can stay dry that whole time, go ahead and use that. We say limit fluid intake 2 to 3 hours before, so that we can empty the bladder out as best we can before we go to bed. And, you know, encourage the child to use the bathroom. You know, I feel like this is the one time you can tell a kid to go to the bathroom, because we tell every kid to go to the bathroom before they go. We as adults go to the bathroom before we go to bed. So make sure that our kids are going to the bathroom before they go to bed.
Question.
Sure.
You mentioned encouraging right before bed. We had one child probably trained 2 ago, and we encourage him before a trip, before we get in the car. Is that permissible? Yeah,
I think you just say, oh, Daddy's going to the bathroom, Mommy's going to the bathroom, you know, and just kind of talk about it. And I think those are times that, but if you see by doing that, you lose the initiation piece, that's when I would back off of it. In the little boy that we're going to talk about, we're going to do a case study, the mom was literally like following him around. Do you need to go? Do you need to go? And they're just like hanging out at home. She just was like, he had been so successful the whole time, she was terrified, and then he had an accident once, and then it was, she should just kept asking. So I think it's okay in those cases. Or especially on a long trip, like if you're in the car and you're driving, it's okay to be like, we're stopping to get gas and to go to the bathroom. So setbacks, like I keep saying, there are going to be setbacks at some point. This isn't a fix-all. there could be some significant changes in routine or lifestyle. I mean, summer's getting ready to happen. If they're not going to be going to school anymore, you might see that they're sick, bladder infections, kidney infections. If they have a bad case of diarrhea, put a pull-up and a diaper on, hold off on the potty training. It's okay. Like, we don't want you guys to be stressed out for that. So it's just, that could be a setback. Bowel training is a little bit more of a challenge. Either we see kids get bowel trained really quickly before they're urine trained, or it's a real long process to get kids bowel trained, especially if they go at night. It's kind of like a blessing and a curse, because it happens at night and it's there and then it's always routine, but then to get them potty trained, it can be a challenge. So use different reinforcers for bowel movements in the toilet, because they happen less frequently. So we want to make sure we are really powerfully reinforcing them for that. And take data on the bowel movements. So if it works, if your kid's like clockwork and at 2 o'clock every day, then that's when you stick them on the toilet 10 minutes before, and then they don't get off until they go. So I say take data for about a week to really figure out what bowel movements happen. If he hides to have bowel accidents in his underwear, consider sitting him on the potty in his underwear and leaving the room, which I know sounds so weird to teach them to go in their underwear, but what we'll do is we'll slowly cut a hole in the underwear so that they learn how to actually go in the toilet. And it seems crazy, but that does work. Something about keeping the underwear on and cutting a hole so that I think there's just this act of having to just let it go in the toilet. So giving them their privacy, and then, like I said, cutting the hole in the underwear may help them initiate the bowel movement. So this boy, Jack, so we sat him at 9 o'clock when he got to school, and he started drinking. And his interval of time between going to the bathroom was 6 minutes. So that 10-minute time frame didn't work for him because he held it for so long. I mean, when you think about bladder steel, I mean, this kid was on 5 sippy cups and hadn't gone. So then we start to panic, and you know, we're reading the manual, and are we sure we're doing this right? You know, and but he just could hold it. And to this day, he's that same way too. At home and at school, he'll hold it all day and go maybe one time, maybe twice, like in the morning and the halfway through the day and then at night. It's remarkable. He was nonverbal, and so he had a PECS book. So we made sure that he had his book available so that he could learn how to ask when he needed to go. And so it took him 5 times before he started to look down before he went to the bathroom. And his day, phase 1 took just 1 day for him. So he was looking down at the end of day 1, but it was like coming to the end, so we didn't push it to day 2. We just called it good at that and moved on. So then day 2, we put him in the cube chair next to the toilet at 9 o'clock. And I will encourage you to use a plastic chair. They're much easier to clean off it if they have accidents. We were pumping him full of fluid starting at 9 o'clock. And approximately 10 minutes was the time that he was off the toilet, sitting in the cube chair. But there were some times where it went a little bit longer and a little bit shorter. Because by the time he learned when I looked down and go, and he was being reinforced and getting off, when the time would hit when we'd stick him on the toilet, he was literally peeing within 30 seconds of us sitting him on the toilet. So maybe his bladder wasn't emptied the last time, but he was learning how to start it and stop it. And that's what we're looking for too, that they're looking down, and then when the 10 minutes is up and you're putting them on the toilet, within 30 seconds we want them to go. Because we don't want them to learn, I sit for 5 minutes and then I go. We want them to learn to go really quickly. So we used his PECS book that had a picture of a toilet on it so that he could let us know when he had to go. And the phase 2 took him 1 full day also. So increasing distance, so he's successful, and then we pull the cube chair back, and then he's successful, and we pull the cube chair back. And we added clothes every time he had a successful void. And he was going about 30 minutes by then, because he was getting some pretty strong muscle control. We were still pushing fluids, but we weren't pushing 5 sippy cups before he was having to go. And as he stood up to take himself to the bathroom, we would just prompt him to make the sentence strip, "I want to potty," on his PECS book. Are you guys familiar with PECS? Okay, PECS is a system to teach kids how to communicate who are nonverbal using pictures. So it would be pictures of their favorite toys, their favorite food. So for kids who have verbal delays, it's a way for them to tell you what they want without, being frustrated. So they have a book of pictures that has all their favorite things, like if it's their favorite foods, their favorite toys, their favorite movies. So we teach them how to look at the pictures, decide what they want, pick up the icon and hand it to you to say, "I want juice," or "I want movie," or whatever it is. And 80% of kids who use picture exchange, PECS is called Picture Exchange Communication System, end up going on to be verbal kids. So it's not specifically geared towards autism or Down syndrome. It's just geared towards kids who don't have a lot of verbal communication. And then when they got home, they moved the chair into the hallway. So by the time he got out to the hallway, as they were moving further away, we said when he hits this point, when he's about 8 to 10 feet away, then we feel like, okay, we're good, and he can start to roam around the house. So on the phase 3 continued, we stopped pushing liquids like I said. We were doing the dry pant check. And we waited for initiation, so when he would take himself to the bathroom, then mom or myself or a staff member was there to help him get his pants off. He was the one we learned about, you want really loose waistbanded pants, because he would have the snap and the zipper, and we're like frantically trying to get it, and it's like he was going when he had to go, so we weren't able to get the stuff off fast enough, so sometimes he was having accidents. So we lengthened the dry pant check to 1.5 hours. And what was great was we have play groups, so throughout the day of the play groups, he was like going over to the bathroom and going like he needed to go, and then realizing he had no help, so then he'd go build his strip with his PECS book and then come find an adult and say, "I need to go to the bathroom." So we were able to take him in. And it just happened so naturally. We were so surprised that he did that. But Mom took him to the bathroom when she thought he needed to go, because he would do a little dance. He also has some self-stem behavior, so he kind of jumps a little bit and rocks a little bit. So she wasn't able to really differentiate between what is just a normal behavior and what was I need to go potty behavior. So they had to go back to phase 3 for a few days. And then that duration lasted 2 more days. So, like I said, this Azarin and Fox book, Toilet Training in Less Than a Day, it is a really good book in terms of content, and basically it's just a longer version of what I said, but it's just not nice in terms of its language. This Work in Progress book, we use that. We combine the Work in Progress method with the Toilet Training in Less Than a Day. And then this Parent Eye Village, and then pottytrainingconcepts.com also. So I know I crammed a ton of information at you, and some of you look mortified, and some of you are like, yeah, let's do this. Do you guys have any questions about it? I know it seems really intense and kind of crazy, but we've had a lot of success with it. We haven't had one kid leave not being potty trained in 7 years. So.
What are the ages of the kids that you?
The youngest I have in my program is 15 months, and they go all the way up to 4 or 5. So our kids are leaving us potty. Our goal is to get all kids potty trained by 3.5.
Like, have you gotten one that just came in at like 5 and you just had
they can't come to the way our kids get selected for our program. They have to be in Sooner Start, so we're not getting kids that young. But we go out on school consults and work with older aged kids, and we give families this information and schools this information, and they've had success with older kids. So if you have a 9 or a 10-year-old, there's no reason why you can't do this method. And a lot of times they pick it up a little bit faster because they have a little bit more self-help skills. They're able to manage their stuff a little bit better. And they're older, so they typically will feel their bladder being full. Because I feel like that's the biggest setback when they're so young. They don't necessarily know how to regulate and feel when their bladder is full.
I think my biggest setback is that mom's telling me to go, like it's a power struggle. It's not like, I mean, she'll go first thing in the morning, I sat her down on the toilet when she was asleep.
Uh-huh.
She'll go.
Right.
And then throughout the day, she's like, "Are you kidding me?" But then right before bath, she'll go.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know, when you were saying about not talking about it, like I can just see her just screaming and just throw down.
And so you may take, because obviously she knows what to do in the toilet, if it is a power struggle thing, then I would say just before you even start this, take some time to get her used to just sitting on the toilet and giving her whatever she wants. If you sit on the toilet for, while you're sitting on the toilet for 2 minutes, you get a sucker. And then if you get off the toilet, you lose the sucker. And if you want more sucker, then you have to sit and then I'll give you the sucker. So really make it contingent based. And when kids get cause and effect and they understand if I do this, then I get this, it goes a lot faster. So then it no longer becomes the power struggle. It becomes, I want what you have so bad that I will sit here. And it's okay if she cries as long as she sits there. And the crying eventually will go away. I think that was the hardest part for our parents because they're like, this is so mean, they're living in the bathroom. It's like, I don't disagree with it. This is the way that we've successfully potty trained all of our kids. And so the trip training just, they had it and they lose it, and then they have it and they lose it, and then they go to school and the teacher wouldn't remember because they were in a regular ed class and she just assumed that they would.
Yeah, so like if they're in a regular ed class and like this summer, if I get her potty trained, then she should have like a card or something where she can just go anytime and not have to go on the scheduled potty break.
Yes, but I will tell you, if your child's on an IEP, they do not have to be potty trained to be in a regular education classroom.
No, she's already in there.
Okay. There's this misconception out there for, like, schools will say, oh, not potty trained can't come in. So I mean, I'm not saying that's your case. It's a big beef for me when public schools do that.
Like when I redid my IEP, I was like, I want something in here because she was just going to school for like 2 hours, so I'd stay there and watch. And then like they wanted her to go longer, so I made them put in the IEP about diapering and changing her because I wasn't there to do it. But so I guess in the new IEP it'll be like she should be allowed to go
whenever she needs to. And that depending on, if she's in pre-K or kindergarten, a lot of times they'll have an extra body in that room, or if she gets assigned an assistant, then it will just be that that they're going to monitor and make sure and take data on when she goes so that because if she starts to have more accidents at school, which wouldn't be an uncommon thing, like for her to have accidents at school at first, you just want to make sure that you're aware of it. And maybe it's one of those things where you come up to school for a day or two and you show them what's supposed to happen, because this is a real foreign concept for a lot of schools. I mean, they think, I take my kids to the bathroom at this time, this is when we go. I mean, so they're just kind of teaching and going to the bathroom to the average of when they think is a natural time. So, I mean, I would hope that you wouldn't have to write in your IEP when she asks she gets to go, because every kid who asks should be able to go when they need to go, but depends on your district. I mean, I've seen that's why I made that comment about if she's not, she still can, because sometimes districts do things that I would consider unethical, let alone illegal, but just simply unethical.
Well, I think they just do it because they know you don't know.
Right. Yes. And that's a soapbox for a whole nother presentation. So, any other questions about anything?
Email address.
Oh yes, my email is Liz not underscore more MOORE at OUHSC, and that's for Health Science Center .edu.
Yeah, I have a question. I think in a lot of ways my daughter is ready, but she probably has one of the biggest problems that you don't like, where in your list of readiness, is that I don't think she can just sit there. She will not sit there. I mean, she is hearing impaired also, and she's always sensory. I mean, just nonstop. I don't know how to make her sit there, like, without doing the trip thing.
Right.
You know,
and you could do the trip. I'm not saying don't do the trip training. You could start with the trip training and see how that goes. And once you've mastered trip training, then phase 2 and phase 3 are going to go much more quickly. It's just if you want to get it all done in one fell swoop. But again, I also said you could break it up in terms of weekends, so there's flexibility in this. Your kids are not as rigid as the kids that I'm working with in terms of we learn it one way, it's a specific way, so you guys have a lot more flexibility in terms of that. If she has a hard time sitting, then I would just work on, before working on sitting on the toilet, I would just work on sitting in a chair and doing a task for a period of time. So if she's sensory seeking, if she likes rice and all that and Play-Doh, then she gets access to all that stuff while she's sitting. The second she stands up, it gets taken away. And then she gets access to those things while she's on the toilet. The kids who come to early foundations, we get them at 15 months. I don't care if you have a disability or not, no 15-month-old knows how to sit. So we spend the first 2 weeks that they're at school, they come 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 weeks. The only thing we work on is teaching them how to sit and give items up. Because I can't teach a kid anything unless they will sit and attend. So I do think that is the most important skill that they're able to do is sit. I don't care about the attending, I just need them to sit. Because if they're not sitting, I can't get them to go to the bathroom. So you may need to take a step back and say, we've got to practice being able to sit. And if she'll sit for 5 minutes, then you go the trip training route. And then once she's mastered that, then you say, okay, now we're ready for the other phases. But you know, sitting is what I feel like the hardest thing we teach our kids, because no 15-month-old. We as adults, I mean, we sit there and preach to teachers about don't stand up and lecture. But how did I do this? I lectured the whole time, and you guys wiggle your legs and you bounce and you doodle and you have ways to manage yourself. But our kids don't. They haven't learned those coping skills yet. So it's a hard thing to teach. Like I said, it takes us 2 solid weeks of. When you stand up, you get something taken away. When you sit down, you gain access to it again. And sometimes they have food, a movie, and a toy all at their beck and call. And then the second they stand up, I'm like swiping the table so that they lose access. But when they get that cause and effect down, they'll sit all day long. I mean, it's not developmentally appropriate for me to make a kid sit for 3 hours. But my kids would literally, if I let my staff and let the kids sit for 3 hours, they would sit for 3 hours because I give them anything they want when they work for me. And that's where this reinforcement piece is so important. So it may be that for 2 weeks, she doesn't get her favorite things, and then you work on sitting. But with the hearing impairment and the sensory seeking, that adds another layer to it. But if you want, I mean, you can email me, we can problem solve, you can try some things, and then shoot me an email, and because my kids are sensory seeking too, so we've got to
have you had them sit there with a belt on, like their weighted belt? Or?
I don't, because we typically, if we do anything like that, it's when they're up and we're playing and they have access to get up. We don't ever use it in terms of restraint and making them sit, because I believe a kid should want to sit because they want to interact and engage, and I'm doing things that they enjoy. School should be fun, and so I want my kids to want to be with me. So that's why we've never gone that route, because I would be afraid we'd get into that, and then what happens when you don't have the belt and target? You know, and you know they have to go, and it's been, or you're taking a long drive and you're stopping at the Texaco. It's like, what do you do? So, plus if they have an accident and it gets on that, then you've got the process of cleaning it all up. So
at what point, you say that you get them to sit and you give them things that they want. So how do you slowly take that away so that they learn to make it part of a routine and not because... Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
like,
because I have kids who
something.
literally, they don't get the iPad anymore unless they go to the bathroom, so they're like taking themselves 50 times a day and like squirting just a little out so that they get access to the iPad. So then we give them something else. We're like, oh, good job, here's your Skittle. You know, or here's a piece of popcorn. When you empty your bladder, I'll give you an iPad. So teaching them that certain reinforcers are more powerful for better responses. So when you're sitting on the toilet, you get an okay reinforcer. When you go to the bathroom, you get the moon. You know, I always look at myself as I'm the banker, and I'm going to pay you in whatever money you want, whether it's iPads or movies or food or whatever it is. And in terms of food, we have a lot of kids who either eat too much or have restricted diets, and so we are not saying give them an entire bag of M&Ms. I am saying take a Starburst and cut it into eighths, and you get 1/8 of a Starburst for sitting there on the toilet. It is not, here's an entire bag of Doritos, because I have kids who literally an entire bag of Doritos sitting on the toilet. So it's doling it out in small pieces. That will make it much more powerful.
Do you have any suggestions for my daughter is beginning to be verbal, but she uses signs. And I'm thinking of all the car trips we have this summer, and the concern of her us not noticing, and I've got 2 other kids, and the noise that she's trying to indicate that she wants to potty. So how do I help her communicate with me from the back of the car?
I would say I would find some type of bell, switch, voice output device like a Big Mac, or if an iPad or an iPod touch, there can be a button and you can set it to talk for you. I know we have books that we read, and it's an app that it just records your voice, so it would just be, she would hit that button and it would be really loud. A bell might be better. Yes, so when you're doing, at the very beginning, so if you're teaching, so the second she goes to stand herself up, you're going to take her hand and put it on the bell, and then she's going to go to the toilet. So that's a really good question. Big Mac switches are awesome too, and it can be, I have to go potty, and then the Big Mac switch can go with her to school, to therapy, to grandma's house. Same thing with the bell, where an iPad is trickier in that sometimes mom needs the iPad for work, or dad needs it on the iPhone, or whatever it is. So you're better off with a bell or a switch toy or something like that. I mean, or you could just teach her to smack you in the back of the head. I'm just kidding. I did a parent training 2 weeks ago, and the dad was talking about how their son, to ask for milk, he hasn't learned to talk yet. So he'll go to the refrigerator, open it up, grab the jug, and we'll take the jug and smack him on the back of the head to get the milk. And I'm like, the next time he does that, and I was like laughing hysterically because to know this kid and that dad, I said, the next time that happens, I want you to go put the milk back in the refrigerator. And then I want you to walk him over to the refrigerator, because a lot of kids with autism don't point. So we're teaching him how to point as his form of communication right now. And then I want you to prompt him to point to the refrigerator. And then you're going to open it. And then I want you to prompt him to point to the milk. And so the next day I saw Dad at pickup time. And I was like, how's the milk going? He's like, he hit me in the head again. But I took him over to the refrigerator like you said. So I just, don't really teach her to hit you in the head. But yeah, like a bell or an alarm or something like that. And just something that can be in a variety of places. So maybe she has one bell at school and one bell at, and if you can, keep it in the same location. So if you're going to have multiple bells, the bell in the kitchen is always right here, and the bell in the bedroom is always right here. Or in the classroom, the bell is always in this one spot. So
what about those toys that you can record into?
Yeah,
like those bears. They make those bears that you can voice record into.
The only thing with that is sometimes they're pretty quiet. So. Okay. Unless it's pretty loud, that's why I would think of a bell, or I keep saying a Big Mac switch because they're those big red ones, you just hit it. And you can make it record and say whatever you want it to say.
What I'm thinking of the downstream issue, I'm tired of being in my car seat, so I hit the Big Mac switch over and over and over again. And over.
Yeah, I mean, but that is a behavior that all kids go to when they learn that saying potty gets me out of whatever. I mean, kids who don't want to be in school are like, I have to go to the bathroom. I mean, I do when I'm at a conference and I'm sick of hearing the person. I get up and go to the bathroom. So it's just a coping skill, which is a totally appropriate coping skill. So if you know she's gone, and then 2 minutes later she's dinging the bell, then I would be like, all right, then now we're going to stop, and then you can go. If you're certain that she doesn't have a bowel movement and that she's peeing. Or you may just have to risk it. But if you know she's just gone, so she's rang that bell and gone. But it would be totally appropriate. When we teach kids how to ask for breaks because they're upset, the first thing we see is that they learn how powerful asking for a break is. So they're asking for it 20, 30, 40 times a day, and we're getting no work done. But you know what? I don't care. Every time they ask in the beginning, I always honor it because I want them to learn the power of that. And then about the 150th time, I say in 1 minute. And then the 160th time, it's like in 2 minutes. So they eventually learn. The novelty of it does wear off. And think about how much money you'll save. Diapers are expensive. And time. I worked with one kid in the public schools. We went out on a consult. And the kid was taking his diaper off, putting it in the trash, wiping himself up. And I'm like, why don't you just teach him to be potty trained? You spent so much time teaching the procedure. You could have just taught him to sit and go on the toilet. So, you guys have really good questions. Anything else?
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
you.